last I heard or read, or basically had to, in a sense, maybe cover my ears from, Xbox was leaving the hardware business, according to some people that, in a sense, position themselves to be knowledgeable, or some that allowed themselves to be gaslit by what people were saying when the data was right in front of them. Apparently, Xbox took one of these, I don't know, media organizations to its, in quotes, secret lab where it's cooking up its next gen console. Unless everything falls apart, then this is more than likely going to also fall apart. But from what it is that we've seen, having seen this article here from Pure Xbox, which linked to the video, it's interesting to see that there is actually hardware that's being made for next generation. Okay, this is a little confusing when you juxtapose what people are spouting on the internet and then try to listen. Because as a PC gamer myself, I don't have to worry about this stuff. However, if I want to be honest with myself or with anybody who I may be having a conversation with, all I have to do is basically appeal to the data. And I've looked at what I think is the best, glance of data that I can get my hands on. And it makes absolutely no sense that Xbox will in any way choose to abandon its hardware. Simply because when I ran the available numbers I could get my hands on from financial statements, estimates, and even leaked documents, in some cases inadvertently, like the CADE, it's the Economic Defensive Council in Brazil, when they published Xbox's documents because they were, trying to protect their own consumers in terms of, being transparent, they showed us what Game Pass numbers look like. Having looked at Game Pass numbers and looked at the prevalent amount of Game Pass users being on a console, I was able to run some, I would say, call it what you want, estimates that the Xbox console is the single most profitable piece of hardware in all of Xbox's business. So, not making the hardware while the other things that constitute the business as a whole have not yet matured doesn't make any sense. So watching this video to me is one of those kind of surprised, not surprised type things. And in this particular video, the interviewer from, I think it's Third Hour Today is the name of the show. They went ahead and they pretty much followed Phil Spencer into this lab, and they walked around and spoke to John Haley, the Xbox prototyping director, who kind of walked them through, I think, what I thought were some advanced 3D printing fab shop that they have out there, where they're basically going ahead to literally cook this thing up. You can see the sauce and the secret seasoning and all that stuff going around as they're, fashioning accessories and stuff that will pretty much appeal, to customers and be used for the next Xbox hardware. In fact, Miss Bond is even here and she gets to talk a little bit. So let's just listen to her side in terms of this whole thing. And perhaps maybe we may put this book to rest so that we can get back and ask Nintendo what the heck they're doing in the gaming industry these days.
And fingers.
This is where we study all of the fine details that go into making the things that you touch, that you feel, anytime you use our product, work for everybody.
And to ensure product durability.
Our gamers are pretty passionate, and sometimes a controller gets dropped.
You mean like thrown?
Everything undergoes a drop test. High-speed cameras analyzing the impacts.
Okay. We get it. Phil's making you hardware. All right, we get the memo. I guess this kind of still goes into the conversation to tell us that this company has now decided that in this particular market, it's probably one of the best times to ramp everything up. This is an American company. With everything that's going on, Xbox pretty much sees itself in a very interesting and unique situation. They were able to weather the storms the last generation with them basically losing the console war. But in terms of content, in terms of service, and in terms of being able to appeal to their customers, I think they've been quite solid. In fact, they put Nintendo and PlayStation to shame when it comes to pro-consumer and game value, proposition and availability at the end of the day, even to the point where they took their games and went ahead and pretty much had PlayStation players pining for their titles via pushing these games to the top of the pre-order charts. In the meantime, they've ensured that their own ecosystem, which is here and has aspects of it like Game Pass and, you know, games available to you even from first and third party developers, is something very, very significant to them. And also, they've been adding titles, even some from their own catalogs, with the new Activision acquisition, like Diablo 4, and more recently with the announcement that Diablo 3 is coming, even to Game Pass as a whole. So these things, I don't know how else to say it, but if anybody is in doubt as to, oh, is Xbox going to make hardware, or if Xbox is going to be in the business and such, then, you know, the answer is, what reason do they have to not be in this? In fact, they have, you know, according to estimates of what Game Pass might eventually do, they have 5 billion reasons to actually continue in the console business, because there is an opportunity here for them. All the talk all these months have just been from a small pocket of the internet that has largely, you know, controlled the narrative and possibly influenced people's perception of Xbox. But I think Xbox is taking control of that just by their action, just by the things that they've been doing. They've literally, you know, sat on the neck of this market and decided that they're going to serve consumers. And to me, I can't imagine why the Xbox user is not, in my opinion, the happiest user right now. In a world where Nintendo wants to sell an $80 locked down version of a game for you that in some cases doesn't even have the full game on that physical media that people have touted for the longest time, Xbox is selling you two versions, if not what I would consider three versions of that same game: cloud, console, PC, in order for you to be able to enjoy at your own pace. I don't see any way anymore that this so-called archaic way of doing business can be special in light of all of this. Valve has been also pushing the envelope as well. Even with their hardware, the Steam Deck, that's tethered to their ecosystem, you get to enjoy those benefits, even though the Steam Deck has some limitations here and there. However, they've always allowed for you to be able to do a lot of really cool things from your own personal computing and what it is that they offer. Xbox is taking it to the next level and wants to bring the console players to this level of, I would say, openness and access, which had been frowned upon, but it was all feigning, because at some point, you know, when you kind of see that the business strategy actually works for the consumer, you can only deny it so much, and you can only basically try to push so far to a specific direction. It's just really wild, though, and it's just really weird that it was ever thought that what Xbox was doing with Game Pass was, in quote, bad for the industry. I remember those arguments. Game Pass is bad for the industry, they said. Yet, there are people who are right now telling Nintendo that giving us this $90 AA layer games that you make is just the worst. And so I think people may be revising their opinions and revising their thought process on Xbox in the very near 48-hour marks. I think people are changing their minds, and they're going to do it quietly. You know, the talking heads that were all Xbox is this and Xbox does that all have a subscription to Game Pass. And so it's funny, though, that they will all have a subscription to Game Pass, right? Yet they will go on their little podcast and basically talk nonsense at the end of the day. But I'm glad that we've basically seen exactly what the play has been for them. And that is that even they themselves are enjoying the value when it comes down to it. And it's just unmatched anywhere. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Talk to me in the comment section, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.